Okay.
Okay. So, good evening and welcome to all the families who have joined us tonight. Our guest speaker will be Janice Royal. Janice will be speaking to us tonight about high school to college transition for our students. Janice has been an independent educational consultant since 2012. She is the founder and president of Royal College Consulting, based in Costa Mesa. Her education includes a BA in American Studies from Cal State Long Beach and a master's in American Studies from Claremont Graduate University. While Janice didn't start off in the education field, she was led there after her youngest child was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Upon learning of her child's diagnosis, she retired from the corporate world to learn everything about children who are neurodiverse. This journey led Janice to the area of college counseling for students with learning differences. And if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and type it in the chat. And at the end of her presentation, she'll go ahead and address all of those questions and any more that you might think of. So at this time, please welcome Janice Royal.
Thank you so much, Danielle.
You're so welcome.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then let me begin the slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so just to confirm, Danielle, you can see my slideshow screen, my PowerPoint?
I can, yes, I can see it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, again, welcome everybody. So tonight the goal is to share information that will help you help your child have a smooth transition from high school to college, with a particular emphasis on issues specific to students with learning disabilities, learning differences. I will be using the term disabilities throughout my presentation because one of the things that changes when your student leaves high school and moves into college is the actual laws, the federal laws change. And now your student will be protected by a segment of the American Disabilities Act that speaks to the access that people with disabilities must be allowed as they go into higher education and go through higher education. So the term disabilities is what they will encounter throughout college. So that's why I use it here. Okay, so let me go ahead and move forward. This is my name, my company, and as Danielle said, I really began this journey shortly after my youngest daughter was diagnosed with autism after 4th grade. She was a late diagnosis, but it was rocked our world, and one of the first questions that popped into my mind was, would she be able to go to college? As I began doing research, trying to figure all that out and understanding what her path would be, I quickly learned that there's a lot of information out there, but it's very scattered, and it's difficult to wade through. And as you all have discovered, developing the plan to apply to college, the applications to college, and then wading through acceptances and all that is a very challenging process, and it can be very overwhelming for our kids that are neurodiverse, right? Just peaks anxiety and all sorts of things. So anyways, that's how I ended up doing what I do, and I do, of course, specialize in guiding high school students through the whole college planning process. Okay, so let's get down to some nitty gritty. The first thing that I want parents to understand are some deadlines that are coming up. There's always deadlines, right? So fortunately, you go to a very buttoned up, your student goes to a very buttoned up high school. Orange Lutheran is extremely organized. They will ask your child, oh, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 times, where are you going to college? Where are you going to college? Where are you going to college? So that when it comes time for the final official transcript to be sent to the college or university that they're matriculating to, there won't be any missed steps. I do have on this slide the deadline that it's the UC deadline is July 1st. That's when the UCs want a student's final high school transcript. Other universities will also have a July 1st deadline. That in my experience is the first deadline. Some schools will say July 15th. So that would be something that your child can log on to their admitted student portal and see what the deadline is, but Orange Lutheran will be sure to get that final transcript to the school that that the student has indicated invariably by July 1st. And the same thing will apply, that same deadline and same requirement needs to happen for any community college classes that your child may have taken through high school. That transcript, Orange Lutheran has no control over. That's not in their wheelhouse at all. So that has to be done directly through the community college. Also with that, I would just plan to have a July 1 deadline. And then finally, any AP test that your child may have taken and earned a 3 or higher, you will want to get those scores to the school that they're going to. The final, if they're taking any AP tests this May, the scores will be released on July 8th. So you can remind your child to log into the College Board website and add the school where they're going, so that these scores will automatically be sent to that college as the new scores come out on July 8th. So this is true for students with learning disabilities and students without, but it's an important place to start, because if these steps are not taken care of, that can actually lead to negative consequences, where a university can actually rescind the offer of admission. So this is a big step into the adult world. You have to meet deadlines, and otherwise there are consequences. So I do like to make sure parents are aware of these deadlines and can help their student meet them. Okay, so for students with a learning disability, the most important next step, in my opinion, is to get them registered with the Student Disability Services Office at the university that they'll be attending. So these offices have different names. Sometimes they're called Student Accessibility Services. They just have many different names depending on the campus. But their purpose is to help those students that have learning disabilities. That their role is to help them receive accommodations that will allow them to access their education at the college campus. So the process for getting this done is you and your child, however you guys want to handle that, but your student should definitely be part of this process, is to go to the school's website, and on the homepage, go to the search icon and type in Student Disability Services. That will lead you to the department link that you need to go to. And from that link, it will tell you step by step how the student can become registered with the office. Typically, the first step is to send an email or do a basic intake form, real basic intake form that serves as an email, and then the student attaches a PDF of their psychological educational report. So whatever psych ed report that you had done in the last, few years by an educational psychologist that identified what your child's diagnosis is and details the tests that were run that brought them to this conclusion, and details the accommodations that the psychologist recommends. That document is what should be sent with this initial intake form, this initial email requesting to be registered with the Student Disability Services office. Then a staff member from that Disability Services office will email your child and say, hello, great, we got your information. We'd like to schedule an intake meeting. And that intake meeting, nowadays, everything's done over Zoom. Sometimes it's just a phone call. But the purpose is for the Disability Services staff person, professional, to speak with your child. Parents are not included in this meeting. And the reason is because the Disability Services person, employee, needs to hear from the student if they can articulate what their diagnosis is and how it impacts them in the classroom, and what accommodations have helped them succeed in the classroom. So those are going to be the three primary areas of questioning, if you will. And they're all very friendly and that kind of thing. It shouldn't be a scary, intimidating thing. But that's the information that that the SDF office is going to be looking for, and they want to hear that from the student. So then after that intake meeting, a week or two, some time will pass, and then the student will get an email that details what accommodations they have been approved for. Approved to receive. So whether it's things like extended time and a half on tests, being able to take tests in a distraction-free environment, which is usually a testing center. Oftentimes it's actually in the Student Disability Services office. Whether it's assistance with note taking, anything, being able to record lectures, whatever that looks like for your child, that will be detailed in this accommodation letter. So then what is important, so then your child is all set, basically, until right before school starts, they need to go into the Student Disability Services office before school classes start in the fall, and make sure that they know this. Your child needs to know what steps they need to do in order to sign up for these, the testing center, how they access their accommodations through the Disability Services office. That will be something that these Disability Services offices will communicate with, with your child through email, but it's always good for your child to go and meet with them face to face. My daughter, who has autism, she just graduated from Concordia University on Saturday, and the person that got the biggest extended hug was the director of Student Disability Services, because that woman walked with my daughter 8 semesters and is a big part of why she graduated. She was successful and was able to graduate. So that person became an important part of my daughter's, college experience. So yeah, so I would encourage your child to make sure they go to the office when they're moved onto campus and make that face-to-face connection. A couple things that I want to make sure that you know is that at the college level, unlike perhaps in high school, universities will grant accommodations, but they will not, nor are they required to by law, modify curriculum. So whatever is required of of students without disabilities will also be required of your child. So that's an important distinction. Sometimes, you know, high schools will make modifications to curriculum to help the students get through, right, and graduate, but that is not required by colleges. It's extremely rare that a university, a college would make any curriculum modification. So just kind of a heads up on that. The next bullet, asking for accommodations early each semester. So this is actually something that most universities have automated, and your child will receive an email from the office, and it will say, we see that you're enrolled in these classes. Which classes do you need your accommodations for? If your student is taking, let's just say, a tennis class or a yoga class because they want to stay active, and it's worth 1 unit or something like that, they don't need their accommodations, right? But for all their academic courses, they very well may need their accommodations. Maybe they don't feel like they need their accommodations for a very basic, kind of a low level class. You know, maybe they're going to be taking freshman composition, and yet they did very, very well in English, in their English classes senior year. So maybe they don't need their accommodations. But what these universities will do is allow students to choose what classes they want their accommodations to apply to. I think more is better, right? Just say you need them for everything, for all the classes except for maybe that yoga. And if your child doesn't truly end up needing it, then that's okay. They don't have to use it. We talked about knowing how to access accommodations. That again will be communicated by these disability services offices, and your student will learn how to navigate that process. This last bullet is important, and that is something that your child will need to become comfortable with. It's crucial that at the end of the first class meeting every semester or every quarter, your child stay behind and introduce themselves to the professor. You know, hello, I'm Janice Royal. I receive accommodations for you know, for autism, and I am allowed extra time and for my tests, and I'm allowed to take tests in a distraction-free environment. And the professor, could you go ahead and everyone just make sure you're on mute? And if you have a question, if you could add it to chat. Thanks very much. Okay, so yeah, this can be intimidating for your child, but it's crucial because these professors have to be on board, and they're the ones that will send the test to the testing center. So it's best if they can put the student's face to the name, and then, you know, make it more of just a personal engagement. They know that they're helping Janice Royal access their education by taking the extra step to get the test to the Disability Services Office. Professors are sometimes the weak link in the ability for your child to access their accommodations in college. My daughter did really well through freshman, sophomore year. Junior year, for whatever reason, she had a combination of professors, both fall and spring semester, that didn't see the urgency in allowing her to be able to take her tests in a distraction-free environment and have extended time. So she ended up making appointments to take tests at the Disability Services Office. She would show up, there was no test because the professor had not sent it to the department, and that was an ongoing issue throughout the year. It was very anxiety producing, very frustrating. My daughter had to escalate it to the dean of, student services, and it was kind of a disaster. It was just a big mess. But she grew a lot through the process, and ultimately she fought hard and got what she needed. And then this last year, senior year, thankfully was very smooth. And I digress and tell you that personal experience so that you know that it, like most parenting, you're going to watch your kids sort of have these peaks and valleys. And these are things that can absolutely happen as they try to get these accommodations. So just one of the ways to hopefully get things off to a smooth start is to make sure your child knows. Introduce yourself to the professor after the first class. Make sure they know that you receive accommodations and you would appreciate them, joining in with the whole process. Okay, so now I'm going to shift gears a little bit. All students need to go to a freshman orientation, and these are usually a ton of fun, very rah-rah, right? This is where they learn their universities or their colleges cheers and some of the traditions. This is where they might meet some of their first friends on campus. I recommend to all my students that they register for the very first one possible. So campuses are starting to send out those dates for students to sign up for orientations. OLU students are kind of fortunate because they graduate relatively early compared to many other high schools. So, pick one in June and have them sign up. The reason orientation is important to go to early is because that's where you're going to register for your first semester classes or first quarter classes. Your child will meet with an academic advisor and they will pick their classes and get all registered and be all set. The later in the summer, as time goes on, those classes are filling up. And if you happen to have gone through college yourself, the process is just the same. First come, first serve, those great class times that are at noon or 1 o'clock, not too early, not too late, no Friday classes, right? Where you're trying to pick the best sections, those fill up fast. So your kid's best chance is to go to those early orientations and get in. Some universities will provide a special breakout for students that are registered with the Disability Services Office. They might even have your child come to campus a day early. It varies by campus, and of course it varies by whoever's running that Disability Services Office, what they have found works best for their campus population or student population. But do have your student keep an eye out for that. again, having communication with the Disability Services Office early on, once they're registered with that office, to say, hey, do you have any special programming for our child over the summer, or during freshman orientation? And that can be critically helpful, because that would be a time where the Disability Services Office would basically explain, here's how it's going to work, each semester. Here's where we can help you. Here are different tools that we have to, help you be successful. And here's how you're going to access your accommodation. So those are all reasons to get in early. Now, not every university has a special breakout for students in the Disability Services Office, but there are these bridge programs that you can actually purchase if you feel like your child really would benefit tremendously by participating in a couple of week program during the summer that would basically be, it would be like college 101. It would be sort of a crash course on here's how to do college, geared towards, again, students that have learning disabilities. And I've listed several universities, several colleges rather, and Adelphi is one as well. And these colleges and universities all have these types of programs. So you could just, Google this list and see what the costs are, how they're provided, and maybe see if that would work. If you think that your child would really benefit by having that sort of, like I said, college 101 class, couple of week class, so that they're not going into college just completely, and they don't step foot onto campus and sort of get overwhelmed immediately. These can be very, very helpful. Okay, let me move on. So these are text heavy, the next several pages, and I apologize for that. But I haven't found a good way to not include the information. So these are just, I think, the most critical differences between high school and college that I share this with all my students, that they don't necessarily understand. And the sooner you do understand it, the sooner you're going to be successful and thrive on the college campus. So one of the biggest issues, right, is that now time in college is managed by the student, not the school, right? In high school, the day is very structured. Your child spends the vast majority of day hours sitting in classes and going from class to class. And then they have the evening hours to do homework. That's flipped in college. In college, there's only a couple of hours where they are in the classroom hearing lectures and that kind of thing. And then they have the vast number of the rest of the 24 hours in the day to do whatever they want to do. And that can get a lot of kids into trouble because they don't realize that the lecture is just a teeny tiny slice of the educational process at the collegiate level, right? So you go to lecture, you've taken your notes, you've sat in class for maybe an hour, then you need to spend at least 2 hours for every hour you're in class outside of the classroom, doing the reading, doing research, learning on your own, reviewing your notes, doing the homework, starting, the research project, doing the labs, so on, right, for each class. So if a student doesn't take ownership of their schedule and master this day one, they will quickly fall behind because information in college comes at them very fast, kind of like this fire hose, analogy, right? They're just getting a ton of information. It's a very dense stream of information, and they have to be able to process it outside of the classroom hours. So that's again, just a very, very big difference. The other difference is that college professors expect students to learn and think independently. So there's not going to be the same kind of, not that high school teachers are hand-holding per se, but in college, it's the students, similar to what I just explained, are really going to be responsible for their learning. That lecture time is just a small piece, ultimately, of the body of knowledge that the professor is presenting, and the student has to take what was talked about in class and then, follow through with assignments and readings and labs and papers and that kind of thing. And so that's a lot more independent work than perhaps they have been accustomed to. So that can be a big shift as well. My personal favorite, cramming doesn't work. And for all of us that tried to do that in college, we remember vividly how that didn't work at all. Nothing has changed there. Really important for our kids with learning disabilities who often are weak in the executive function areas of the brain. They're not always the best time managers. They're not always the best schedulers. And they don't always think through the repercussions of not devoting the proper amount of time and spacing out the learning process, right? Even if they happen to have been one of those students who could cram at the last minute in high school and get a good grade, it's extremely unlikely that that strategy will continue to be successful in college. So this is, again, a big, big difference and something that they'll have to adjust to very quickly. Item number 4, their social life is wide open. Depending on where your child is going to college, whether they're going to live at home and commute, or whether they're going to move out of their childhood bedroom at your home and go live on campus, whatever that looks like, there's going to be this new social scene, right? This whole new group of people. And especially for those students that move away from home and live in the dorms, or live in the residences on the college campus, that freedom can often, it's thrilling, and it's why a lot of students, of course, want to go, but it can also pose a problem if they don't implement those time management and those scheduling tactics that need to happen to make sure that they're not just doing the social stuff and all the academic stuff as an afterthought. They're there, and you are paying dearly in many cases for the academic piece, and the social piece. There's a lot of learning that goes on there, but you get it, right? It's there just has to be a balance. So they need to know that this will be an ongoing challenge in balancing their schedule. How do they balance the academic and still have access to the fun events? And colleges are filled with hundreds of fun events, throughout the week. The clubs they join, their own dorm, their RA will put on events and just everything all the time. So they're going to have to pick and choose and make sure that they're not trying to say yes to everything and their academics suffer. Okay, so the last couple of things, dorm living. For those of you that did go to college, again, very little has changed here. Tiny, tiny living spaces that your child will have to share with a virtual stranger. Even if they happen to room with a best friend from high school or wherever, still they haven't lived with this person before. So that can present all sorts of fun growing opportunities. But you know, it's an important part of the process, and I think it's helpful if your child understands that this roommate sometimes could go on to be a lifelong friend, but it's not a requirement. It could just mean that they are sharing a living space with somebody, and maybe they don't end up continuing to be roommates in subsequent years, or they don't continue to, or maybe they don't socialize outside of, you know, their living space. And that's okay, right? It doesn't have to be a match made in heaven, but they will have to learn how to negotiate living in this little space with this person, and, you know, make sure it's a welcoming environment for both sides. And then the last thing is that now your child is definitely moving from having all of their daily moods, their money choices, all that kind of stuff has been, if you're like me, it was pretty closely overseen throughout all of their years. And then when they do go into college, it shifts pretty significantly. And so I just think it's important for students, if there's any students on the call tonight, or if they listen to this recording later, it's important for them to know that it's not always a smooth and easy transition to make new friends on the college campus. But I'll go into a couple of tactics, a couple of strategies as to what you can do to have more success in that area. But yeah, it's just, again, that moving out and being on your own at this in your new home can just be a really big shift for any child. And those with learning disabilities often have more anxiety than others, and so that has to be looked at as, you know, as they go through this significant transition. Okay, so one of the things that I talked about earlier with respect to the intake meeting that the Student Disability Services Office will have with your child to get them registered with their office is to be able to your child to be able to verbalize what their disability is. They need to be able to label it. What is the clinical diagnosis, right? And really importantly, they need to be able to talk about how it affects them in the classroom and what accommodations work best for them. It's really important that students learn to advocate for themselves. So depending on where you and your child are on, say, the spectrum of them being able to talk about their disability and talk to an adult or talk to a peer and explain what their disability is, this is going to be something that, right, these don't go away. These aren't cured. They're just how we are made, how they're made, and they will need to be able to communicate this throughout their life. So being able to do this on their own is crucial as they step into higher education. So I like to make sure that students know that they should be comfortable describing their disability to others. And they need to, hopefully by this point in their education, know what strategies work well for them. And they'll learn other strategies as they move into college, because they're going to have a lot of tutoring centers and a lot of learning centers and a lot of places on campus that will help support them in their educational journey. And those people will be able, the people that work in those different spaces will be able to communicate a lot of different strategies that may be new to the student, but that's all good. But again, at this point, getting all the way through high school, I'm sure they've learned some strategies for, how to get through all of their coursework. Maybe they have to, this chunk up their work, or maybe they work for half an hour and take a 5-minute break or 10-minute break, and then go back and work a half an hour and then take a break. Maybe they space out the time they spend on a large assignment so that they're not overwhelmed. Whatever strategies they've learned up until now, that's how they're going to enter into college, and then there will be opportunities for them to learn additional ones. And then as I've said, very important for them to get connected with the Student Disability Services Office and some of the other resources that will be helpful to them over the next 4 years. So let me share this next slide with you. Studying, of course, can be really a whole new world in college, right? That information that is going to be shared with them by their professors and that they're going to be responsible for obtaining can be overwhelming as to how they go about gathering all that information and ordering it so that they can then internalize it and know it, right? So I've given you a handful of resources on this page that I have found and my students have found to be very, very helpful to again give some additional ideas about how to study effectively. I don't know if OLU still offers this, but they used to have a program. I think I said both of my daughters went through OLU, and they used to offer a program on, study skills or strong studying techniques. And you could pay a little bit of money for your child to go to that. But that all can be very, very helpful. And your child is going to have to learn how to, do effective note-taking. Note-taking is super important at the collegiate level. Time management, of course, we've been talking about that. So over here on the right, I've given you some links, and Danielle will share this slideshow presentation with you, so you'll have access to all the links. And I would encourage you to look through all of them. One of my absolute favorites is this Stanford University Student Learning Program. So Stanford University, with its 2% acceptance rate, they know that college is hard. They know that their college is hard and their classes are hard. And so they require all their freshmen to go through basically a study skills class so that they learn how to time manage. They learn how to take notes at a collegiate level. They learn how to take tests. All these things on the left, these are all units that this link your child will find. And I just think it's well worth the time to go through that before they move into the dorm and start their fall semester. Some really, really good strategies here. The other thing, the other tool or strategy that I want you to be aware of is this college success plan. This is a private company. The company's name is College Success Plan. And what they do is they basically have a stable of executive function coaches. They're college mentors. And these people have been trained in how to teach students with learning disabilities. They basically, I utilized this company for my daughter. I hired an executive function coach for 5 semesters for her, and that made, again, a huge difference in ensuring that she was successful in graduating, because what we found is that she was overwhelmed by the time management and the organizational process of how to structure her day. She found registering for classes overwhelming, and there was just a lot of the administrative stuff of college that was overwhelming for her. And rather than her dad or I, in trying to be that executive function coach, we outsourced it to this company and had, she had the same mentor for 5 semesters. It was quite miraculous, the turnaround. Our daughter went from wanting to drop out of college and just, throw in the towel to, as I said, she graduated. She'll be going on to vet school. She's been doing primary research, winning awards, having paid travel to present at international conferences, all because there was a lot of pieces to that. But one of the huge reasons that I believe she was successful is because we utilized this college success plan and their mentors. And it's just having that professional come alongside your child and making sure they know how to structure their day, their week, their month, making sure that everything's in place, just, coming alongside them through the process. So before, if your child happens to hit a significant wall in that first year, I would encourage you to maybe reach out to this company. There are other companies that do this. This is who we use. And see if they might be helpful in getting things back on track. Just a resource. I have no relationship with them. I don't get paid a fee. They don't even know I include this in my presentation. It's just from personal experience. Okay, and then this last one is my homework student planner app. Fantastic. And there's a free version, and then there's a $4.99 a month version. Again, it's just helping the student with their time management and their scheduling and keeping organized, because that is a big part of what they need to be able to do. Okay, moving right along. So campus resources. There are so many resources available to students, but your child has to go get them, right? These people might send an email saying, hey, we're located here. Here are some of the services we offer. But your child has to walk across campus, go in and, sign up for services, introduce themselves, sign up for services, so on and so forth, right? It just isn't brought to them. They have to actively seek out. So here are some of the most important offices, I think, on a college campus. Of course, for our kiddos, I put Student Disability Service first. Close second is going to be the Math Center, right? The Writing Center. Depending on where your child is going to college, the Student Disability Service Office might offer some tutoring services actually in the office, right? just depends. Every university is so very different as to what they provide. But if they don't offer it within student disability services, all universities have math centers and writing centers. And there is no reason that, a student, especially freshmen, should not be going to these centers and spending plenty of time. You're paying dearly in your tuition and fees for these to exist, whether they use them or not. So they might as well use them to, get going and have the most support available. Academic support, that's where they're going to, get guidance. That's where their academic advisor is going to be housed. And that's the person who's going to make sure that they're taking the right classes and enough classes to graduate in their major. Most universities now require students to meet with their academic advisor before they're allowed to register for classes. And that's so that, again, they stay on track and hopefully graduate in 4 years. The health center, yep, very important place. If for whatever, everything from a headache and they don't have any Tylenol or something to more serious concerns, the health center is definitely a place where they're going to want to know where that is and in case they ever need it. Counseling centers. Universities will have free mental health counseling. There's usually a limit. Again, varies by university. Kind of on average, they will limit maybe 6 to 8 sessions a semester. But that can be a really important resource, especially for kids that move away from home. Homesickness is real, and it impacts probably 99% of students, and it manifests itself in different ways. The counseling center is there, and for, again, part of those fees, they can go and have a couple of free sessions and sort of talk those things through so that they're in a good place to, again, stay engaged with their college experience and do well academically. The rec center, some of them are ridiculous with lazy rivers and, big saunas there's hot tubs that will fit, like 100 students. I mean, some of these are pretty crazy what they offer. But the vast majority have weights, your stationary bicycles, your ellipticals. They have rooms for Zumba classes, hot yoga, whatever, all those different kinds of spaces. They'll have a basketball, a gym for, for students that just want to play. Again, one of the big things that all students need, but I would say even more so, are kids with learning disabilities. They need to stay fit and keep physically healthy, because that will keep that anxiety at bay and it will give them those positive endorphins. So that rec center hopefully can be put on the schedule and be a part of their weekly activities. IT support, if their laptop, their whatever they're bringing to campus goes glitchy, they should know where they can take it on campus and get some help. The financial aid office, that can be a big part of a student's process. The library, of course, they should not only know where that is, but use it a lot. And then I talked about academic advisors. The last one is career services. Very important for your child to go to the career services as a freshman. This should not be the office that they wait until senior year to go to, because these people are specially trained, right? This is what they got their college degree in, and they're there and they've made contacts with businesses throughout many, many, many communities across the nation. They will help your child get internships for the summer. And that, as you I believe no is crucial to gaining experience so that they can ultimately get a good job in their career field after graduation. So career services, go freshman year, take advantage, again, all part of the fee structure. Okay, off-campus resources. Depending on what your child currently uses, you may have to find local mental health providers, local healthcare providers. Think about if your student is moving out of state, that prescriptions cannot always be refilled across state lines. So make sure if your child has, takes medication, that is filled at a pharmacy in the new home city, so that there's no glitches there and they keep their medication steady. And then I think it's very wise to look up where the nearest emergency room and urgent care facilities are, and just have your child put that in their phone. It's amazing what seems to happen when your child moves away. My oldest daughter went to school in Montana, so it was very, very out of reach. She called me one day, middle of first semester, and she said, "Mom, I can't breathe." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, I can't breathe. My throat is closing. And I'm like, "Why are you talking to me? Call 911. So this kid, apparently she could breathe enough that she finished the calculus class she was in. Then she went to the healthcare facility, and turns out she was having an allergic reaction to some medication she had started just before she left for college. She got taken to the ER, and luckily she had met a couple of friends that, could communicate with me what was happening. But that was wild, and we were very unprepared for that to happen. So don't do as I did and be oblivious. Make sure you've got at least this part covered. Okay, legal documentation. So I have a story here too, and I will tell you that these documents are crucial. So make sure that if you have a family attorney, you get a durable power of attorney set up before your child, again, moves onto campus. That durable power of attorney can include what's called a universal HIPAA. And HIPAA is, of course, our healthcare privacy document. Once your child has turned 18, then you can no longer talk to their doctor, talk to the PA, talk to the nurse. You just can't, right? They're not going to share any information with you, because that's all protected private information that belongs to your child now. And so in order to still be able to help them, if something significant happens, some health emergency happens, I recommend that durable power of attorney being in place, that it includes a universal HIPAA. That's what this guy is here. Whoops, my bad. Oh, shoot, let me go back. Hold on, so sorry. The FERPA, that stands for Federal Education Rights Privacy Act. And what FERPA is, every university will have a FERPA waiver document that your child can sign and name you and your spouse as people that can indeed have access to their educational records at the university. Once your child is on campus, or actually now, if they have indeed, signed, accepted the offer of admission and submitted their deposit, as of this moment, you have no rights to their educational records. The university absolutely cannot share any information with you. The Disability Services Office cannot share any information with you. The only people that will really talk to you is the bursar's office, because they're the people that will send you the bill. They will remind you how much you might owe, or work out a payment plan with you, or whatever that looks like. But educational records are off limits. However, by your child putting your names down on this document and signing it and giving it to the registrar's office, they will keep it on file, and that then allows you to be able to ask questions. And this comes in handy, pardon me, if something happens. And here's an example of what can happen. So sophomore year, we just got through COVID. We thought the worst of everything was behind us, right? And then in January of sophomore year, my daughter is an equestrian. She had a horrible horse riding accident. She fell flat on her face in the arena. She was thrown, a good long way. Her glasses sliced open her face. It was gory. She needed significant surgery and all this kind of stuff. It was bad. So yours truly didn't have all this stuff in place because nothing was going to happen. Don't ask me why. Bad, right? This is like Dr. Hill yourself story. So wasn't in place, and all of a sudden I couldn't talk to her professors and let them know that this had happened, and could they send me her assignment so while she was in recuperating at home she could still do her work. I couldn't talk to disability services and get an extension on assignments. Our hands were tied, and it wasn't the university being wicked, it was them following the letter of the law. So that's my example. Don't do as I did, do as I now know, and get these documents in place. If you don't have a family attorney, I recommend this website, Mama Bear Legal Forms. For a little bit of money, they have all of these templates that you can fill out and get notarized, and they will serve the purpose. Okay, that brings us to just about the end here. This visual, I feel like, is super powerful, especially to young people. If they look at college without accommodations, the left-hand picture is a visual of what their experience is going to be like if they do not use the accommodations that they are legally entitled to. It's going to be a lot of steps. They're going to be out of breath. It's just going to be a lot more work, and it's not necessary. On the right-hand side is college with accommodations. It's going to be a smoother process. They're going to be able to enjoy the view a little bit more as they reach their goal, which is, of course, to graduate. So whether they ultimately use their accommodations for all of their classes, some of their classes, one semester, all the semesters, have them in place before you start, and then you're good to go. What universities aren't going to let you do is add your accommodations on midstream. They're not able to do that. So they're going to be able to let you sign up at the beginning of each semester. So yeah, good advice. Get that done right now. And if you know where your child's going, they should get moving on that sooner rather than later. And that, my friends, is the end of my formal presentation. Congratulations, parents, for walking alongside, being your child's biggest cheerleader. It is a amazing, hard, and I can tell you at the end of the day, Saturday was her graduation was one of the most joyful moments in my life. So it's worth it. And yeah, OLU does a beautiful graduation. You're going to have a great time. And I thank you for allowing me to share your part of your evening. The last two slides are additional resources, lots of links, and then a couple of books that I think are particularly helpful. The 7 Steps to College Success is a colleague of mine. This is her new edition. She's one of my mentors, and it's a terrific read. So with that, does anyone have any questions for me before we sign off for the evening? How about you, Danielle? Do you have any questions for me?
No, I just thought all this information is so important. Things we might not necessarily think of. And then, of course, being prepared to go. I will say that for the first time ever in my position, I've actually had some parents and students reach out to me about what they needed to provide the disability service office at the college.
Oh,
And the couple I've received were quite tedious. And so because they have to have all of that for at Orange Lutheran, these kids, had everything that they needed
perfect.
to be successful there. But I know a lot of times it's like, well, they don't really need that. Well, it's really important to know that it's college by college and that you have to go to the website and see what they need.
Yeah.
Typically they want a copy of the OLU plan that they used and they want their latest testing. And some schools are requesting that it be within 3 years. So I have found colleges they're actually being more sticklers about the requirements than they have been in the past years.
You know, it's interesting. It absolutely varies by college. My experience
Yeah.
is that a lot of our California state schools
Hmm.
are very, very accommodating
Oh, good.
as to what reporting
Right.
they will require. And a lot of that has to do with access, right? They don't want to prevent a student from having access to education, to, a career, a better life, all that kind of good stuff. So they try to work with whatever the family has.
Mhm.
However, as Danielle said, that varies significantly across the country. You will find the specific requirements on the Student Disability Services page of
Yep.
the website of wherever your child's going. Um,
I
I
just,
I do
yeah,
tell
doing
my
it sooner than later, right?
yeah, because if the school absolutely mandates that you must have psych ed testing, right? Within 3 years. It can't be more than 3 years old, and you don't have it that current. It could be a challenge to get into an educational psychologist between now and the beginning of the school year.
Right.
I I don't know what the scene is now, but last year you couldn't get in to see an educational psychologist. They were so overwhelmed with, kids suffering from the COVID lockdowns.
Right.
You couldn't get in. So hopefully things are not quite as crazy booked.
Yeah.
But before you panic or spend a lot of money to get a new
Right.
a new report, look at the documentation that's required, and the DSPS form detail might be sufficient. It might be sufficient.
It might be sufficient. I just wanted to put it on record, just saying if you know the college your student's going to look at that page right away so that you know what the requirements are and you make sure you have everything
Yes,
ready to go.
yes, I wholeheartedly agree, and absolutely.
Otherwise,
Okay,
I don't have any questions. I just really appreciate all your information.
well, it's a lot of information. So I have my contact information in this presentation. It's a standing offer. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Please feel free to reach out, give me a call, send me a text, send me an email, whatever is most convenient, and I will get back to you and we'll try to get, make it as easy as possible for you and your child. But it's exciting. You just, it's still some work, and our kiddos take a little bit longer, I would say, than the average kid
Yeah.
to totally launch without us providing that guidance. So just be patient with the process and they'll get there.
Yep. Well,
So
thank you so much, Janice. I really, really appreciate it.
you're
And
welcome.
as soon as you send me the link, I'll get it out and send it to all the senior parents.
Sounds good. All right. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you. You too. Thanks, Janice.
Good night.